SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados.
Darren DeLon, Jaho Jifkados.
And Jared Moore in the studio.
Okay.
Jaho Jifkados.
Oh, good evil laugh. Way to start the show.
Yeah.
Well, it is October 31st, the Halloween. And as usual, we take a little time to let our hair down, so to speak, and then play with the date and talk about stuff Halloweenish. So joining us today, of course, is Darren, and the guy who doesn't get to come out too much and play, Jared Moore. So
yes,
thanks.
I'm the ghoul they keep in the closet.
Yeah.
In the shadows I lurk.
You lurk once more.
Well, yeah.
So today, I know you tapped me to come in and talk about ghosts. Is that what I'm doing today, Gary?
Oh, yeah. And experiences. We could even take some phone calls from folks who might have a story today, but it's kind of a relaxed program. We just kind of like to have fun with it. In the past, we've done a lot of Mvskoke ghost kinds of things, roads that you might not want to go down in the dark, and places you might not want to wander around, including churchyards.
You know, I noticed something that, especially with all these ghost stories, they always intensify for the month of October, man. What do? Do they like take a break for like the other 11 months out of the year, or what are we doing right there? I mean, I'm pretty sure they're still scary all the other months, but for some reason it's always October or it's always this day. Everybody, the being scared intensifies.
Mm-hmm.
It gets worse.
It could be all the scary movies they put on TV.
and you know what? And tomorrow be November 1st, and they'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody be fine. Everybody be going down that dirt road.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Well, you know, the Halloween's like one of those times a year it's one of my favorite times a year because I've always been interested in paranormal stuff and everything like that. You know, in fact, that's one of the things I was talking to Gary about when we were talking about this show was I recently read this interesting thing in a book my wife got me, but it was about this thing called the Philip experiment, right? Mm-hmm. So what the Philip experiment was is in the 70s, you had research that was conducted by a mathematician, A.R.G. Owen, and a psychologist, Dr. Joel Witten, in the UK. Okay. And so what these guys did was, from their perspective, they weren't trying to do research on ghosts that's like they believe in ghosts. They believed that the phenomenon associated with ghosts was like psychokinetic or is like telekinetic or like is like a psychic powers.
It's all in your head, so to speak.
Right. And there's also this concept from Tibetan mythology that's called a tulpa, right? So what a tulpa is in their culture, they have a thing where it's like if you meditate and you think about creating a person, you can create this ghost of a person that starts to act in the world on its own. So what they did was they postulated this theory that basically the phenomenon that you would see in a haunting or at a seance or something like that was the product of the people that were in the haunted house or that were at the seance, them all collectively believing in a certain thing, and that would cause that thing to manifest.
To appear, yeah.
Yeah, so they structured an experiment where they got a group of people together that didn't had neutral beliefs about spirits. They didn't believe in spirits, and they weren't against the idea of spirits or anything. It was like average people. And they put them in a group, and they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you guys create a ghost. And then we're going to do seances where you speak to this ghost, and we're going to see if we can get any of the same type of phenomenon that had been reported at other seances to happen in our controlled environment, right? So they had the group get together, and the group spent like a week or 2 weeks or something together writing the story of the person. So the person's name that they came up with was Philip Aylesford. And they made this elaborate history of how he died and his relationships and all those things. Right?
Okay, all right. Oh, let me stop you right there. So all this right now, this is just conjured up. This is the group is making a story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they just sat around and they said, "Hey, what do we call the guy? Oh, we'll call him Philip.
Okay.
Oh, well, where is he from? Oh, he's from this place, and so on and so forth." So they constructed his whole history. It doesn't exist. There is no Philip.
Okay.
And then after they did that part, they started doing the seances. Now, the interesting thing with the Philip experiment is they started getting results at their seances where the table would move and there was rapping and stuff, the standard stuff that you would see with other seances that had been faked that they had shown that the mediums were faking those things, like rapping on the table underneath and stuff like that, right? But since the Philip experiment was conducted by these researchers who didn't believe in spirits or anything, they had controlled environment and they were monitoring it. So they were getting results like rapping with all of the people's, so they were filming it and recording it with audio recorders, and you could see all the people's hands are on the table. And then they went one further, and this is you can find this on YouTube if you go to YouTube and you type in Philip experiment. The BBC had these researchers bring their group into a BBC soundstage, and they filmed them conducting a seance with Philip to try to show the photographic evidence of it. And you can watch that footage and see that and hear the rapping. They take a boom mic and they put it down on the table and everything. It's a really interesting thing that, and after that experiment was conducted, there were other researchers that also did the same type of thing. Now, reproducibility, they haven't had, total reproducibility in other situations, but it's one of those interesting things. I read it and I thought, I hadn't heard of that, and I've read a lot of stuff about ghosts. So if you're out there and you're interested in ghosts or that type of thing, check out the Philip experiment. It's something that's one of the things with poltergeists that they've always, one of the theories is that poltergeists aren't ghosts or spirits. They're psychic manifestations, like individuals have latent psychic ability, some individuals do, and when they go through traumas or whatever, that it manifests itself in this paranormal, like things moving and stuff. That one of the classic cases was a girl who was a switchboard operator, or I think she worked in a German law firm or something, but the lamps over her head would swing all the time, and they've got film of that. And then also what tipped them off that it might be her was they started to get these crazy phone bills where the phone company was calling them and saying, "How are you guys doing this? Because we're getting like 1,000 calls to this number that tells you what time it is, like within a second. It's physically impossible for you to be able to dial what time it was."
Those time and temperatures.
Yeah, and what they found, what they thought it was this girl was like trying to see what time it was because she was scheduled to get off at a certain time from work, so because it matched up with her time card thing. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff about that's strange.
Interesting that you chose poltergeists, since we had one of our kinfolk appear in that movie, Will Sampson, and he played I hate the word shaman. I mean, it really disgusts me. But he played the medicine man, so to speak, and that was interesting. By the way, if anyone out there has a ghost story you'd care to share, give us a call. We would be interested in hearing from you. 918-756-3646, and share us your story, and make sure it is, of course, G-rated, ghost-rated. Now, have either of you guys been through a situation where you had one of these experiences yourself?
There was a time, I'm going to have to say like 2013 or something. Daniel Roberts and I, we did this little, for some reason, it was we just wanted to try to do some ghost hunting. And, of course, we went out to a church property. That church will remain unnamed, and I don't want to get in trouble right there. But
well, you have to be careful too, because if you tell people that you went to a place, a whole bunch of people will come out of the woodwork and start going there.
And it was funny because and like I said, this might have been just me. Nothing happened that night. Nothing. When we had our recorders, we got our cameras. We didn't see anything. Of course, when I got home, following, jumped in the shower, my eyes started burning, and I was like wondering what was going on. And I don't know if I just kept rubbing it just from being tired. That's what I honestly think it was. But there was all these little scratches on the outside of my eye.
Whoa,
yeah.
creepy.
So, but yeah, the funny thing about that was, I mean, could I believe that something did happen for me, like disturbing them out there? Yes, but then also I was still tired that night, and I was also rubbing my eyes a lot. So, I kind of I think it's like the point I was scared, but then I was making myself scared, which was kind of fun. Yeah.
Well, I went and filmed a documentary in the old city jail here in Okmulgee. So I got in there, and I had some material that I had done some research on some people that had died in the jail and so on and so forth. So I shot a ghost thing. Now, just to clarify, I don't believe ghosts or spirits or anything like that. I research it. I think it's interesting, and I read the books and the stories of it. I think that there might be something happening, but I think if anything, it's like, more likely that people are having a hallucination or something like that. So I went and filmed that, and one of the things they'll tell you if you watch like these ghost shows and stuff is that you have to be careful when you go and film these things or do these types of things, because the phenomena can follow you home. Like the ghost can follow you home and you'll start seeing stuff. Now, that being said, after I filmed this documentary, I went home, and I've had like 2 or 3 things happen since then. It's been about a year that were really kind of, I don't know what caused it. For instance, I had my wardrobe on one of those rolly things you buy from Walmart. So, you get them and you put them together, and then you hang all your clothes on it. It has wheels at the bottom. And when it's full of clothes, it's hard to even push over, like if you got it totally full of clothes, because it weighs a lot. And so
it'll fall over on its own, by the way.
Yeah, so that happened in the middle of the night when the thing was in the center of the room. There was nothing there. And so I woke up in the morning, and I went to go put my clothes on, and the clothes have fallen over. And my wife was like, "Did you not hear that last night? There's a huge commotion out here of stuff smashing around." And I was like, "No," and I had slept through the whole thing. So that happened. And then after that happened, we had another incident where we were in the living room watching TV, and in the bedroom, we had a framed poster with glass on it, and that fell off the wall and smashed on the ground. So we cleaned that up. Then we had another incident where we were sitting in the living room watching TV, and right next to the TV there was a painting that I had done. And that flew off of the wall and fell on the floor, and I got up and put it back on there on the wall, and I made a joke about it. But that's some strange stuff that hadn't happened before in the house, So I don't when the picture with the glass fell off. So I went and checked the nail and everything that it was hung on, and the nail was still in the wall. There was also some like fingerprints on the top part of the frame that I don't know where they came from, because I hadn't touched it. And so I didn't have an explanation for what happened there. My wife was saying maybe, we had those earthquakes. So it's possible that because my house is one of those ones that has a crawl space, that the rock things they put underneath of there had shifted, and maybe the house was shifting. Because I know when the earthquake actually happened, the whole house was like, going back and forth. So that could have been something, but weird stuff, man.
Well, it's like when you encounter something like this, you try and eliminate the possibles.
Yeah, which is basically, you can't. There's always going to be a explanation for it, because there's so many ways that you could explain anything. Even if you think you see a ghost, like you could be having a hallucination, etc.
Now, we're hears my voice today. I want to remind our listeners, if you've got a ghost story you want to share, please give us a call, 918-756-3646. Now, I understand there have been a lot of things happening right here in Okmulgee, and we're looking catty corner from one of the ground zeros of unusual incidents, shall we say.
Supposedly, and that's one of the things we were talking about, it used to be a warehouse market, but now it's the Cost Saver, I think. That place is supposed to be haunted.
Oh, the one on 75 Wood Drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the one. Is that right, Gary?
I'm not sure.
Or is it the other one?
I think it was the other one, the one that's now closed, because I actually...
8th Street. Okay.
Yeah, I actually went in there one day, kind of doing a little research for one of these shows. And I asked, for the manager, and, okay, well, yeah, what can I do for you, kind of thing. Gosh, no voice. And I asked him, this store is on a list of places here in Okmulgee that has had some paranormal occurrences. And all of a sudden he got a little nervous.
Yeah.
I said, well, I guess, I'm nervous because of ghosts or mostly the management. The brass, the higher-ups, don't want him to think that store is haunted. But he says, well, I really can't talk to you, but there have been people who say some things have occurred.
If it's that place, because it's closed down, we should try to get in there, I mean, I wonder if they'd lease it for a month. So you could go in there and you could do an investigation for over a long period of time and check it all out. Because the thing, I think we probably read the same thing online. There's a thing online that says that it's haunted and it's back in the back part, the loading area or something like that. And so, but that'd be interesting, especially because it's vacant right now. There wouldn't be a problem, with people worried about how it's going to affect the sales or yada yada yada. And in fact, you could turn it into a selling point. If you want to put in a haunted house in there.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be pretty nice.
Warehouse market and paranormal.
Yeah. Yeah, Ghoul House Market.
Every time I went in there, I kept looking for, like the Cheetos to float across the aisle or something.
Yeah, it's like Slimer's comes out with hot dogs hanging out of his mouth. So, there's also, we did that investigation about Timmy Jack on the television program. If anybody wanted to go to YouTube, you can find it on there. You can go to our Mvskoke Media channel on YouTube, and they have just do a search on our channel for Halloween, and we've got a couple of Halloween episodes on there, but one we did on Timmy Jack because he was executed in a public execution on the grounds of the council house. And so that's one of the things they always say is that if it's a traumatic death or whatever, maybe it leaves a spirit.
Was that the last public execution that they had? Was that the last one?
Yes, that was the last one, supposedly.
Yeah.
I think I saw a play.
Yeah.
That reenacted that. That particular case. And,
in the 90s they did that, I think.
And what was it that he asked him to use his own gun or something like that?
Yeah, or there's something associated. The guy that shot him was like his
brother, cousin or something like that. Yeah, he what was the thing was, I guess, he was found guilty, and he wanted to, I guess they gave him like so many months to get everything taken care of for his family. And then he came back, and then he requested. I think it was because if we're, I'm really can't remember, so don't quote me on that, listeners. But it was like that was the one that they had it like a little piece of paper or something like that on his chest where he was supposed to shoot at.
Yeah, the video we have on it is really good, and it I think we have that in the video. But we do a full reenactment of everything that. He got convicted of, and then him getting executed and all of that stuff, like History Channel style with Daniel and Mark Abbott from PR at that time. So it's a really interesting video, and Gary, you did all of the voice work on it, so it was fun. We actually, we did that investigation.
Yeah, we did.
And we actually got an orb in one of our photos, so that's one of the things that people say is evidence of the ghosts is the orbs in the photographs. My opinion is that it's just dust or your lens flare. But,
somebody sneezed.
Well, that is one of the things that Now I say that. Now I've seen some videos of some orb stuff. There was one that was from years ago where a group went with a medium into this particular basement in Louisiana, and their video is really interesting because they don't have like one or two little orbs, in video, and you don't really see them that often in video, but they had like looked like the whole room filled up with stuff, and you couldn't even see the other people. So like all of these little balls of stuff flew into around them, and you could see it swirling around like smoke, and they're in a basement. So it was really that video was one of the ones that I saw that works against that it's a camera malfunction thing, because the person who's filming it is like moving through this miasma, and there's like it's really thick, and it swirls around. So it's like you start thinking about it, it's like they're in a basement, how's the air moving around, and it's in the video, it's pretty violent, looks like a tornado or something.
Now, I've seen photographs of the interior of the council house. Amanda shot them from public relations.
Yeah.
She was working with us at the time, and had done several things there, and there were these white balls of light on her photo.
Yeah.
And
if any place was going to have any activity, Mulgi at least, you'd think it would be the council house, because there's been so much stuff happening there, and also things that really impacted people's lives directly. They have the whole story about the farmers coming in with the tractors and tearing down the wall, and the original structure being rebuilt, and all of those things. So big traumatic events have happened there, and I mean, public executions are about as high up that list as you can get. If you think about Tower of London or any of those things where, like, traditionally you would expect to see ghosts, so.
My question, I'm sorry, Gary, just real quick, recently, the council house has been refurbished, it has been, they've redone the inside. I mean, I think they're going to have a grand opening here pretty soon.
Yeah, in November.
My question is, and please answer, guys, what does the paranormal, if there's spirits around, does it lose I guess its strength or anything like that whenever something's like rebuilt or refurbished? Does it throw anything off that y'all might have heard from other people?
Well, that's an interesting question of whether that does that, and you would have to go down the rabbit hole of which theory are we dealing with? Are ghosts spirits of dead people? If that's the case, you would say probably not. It's not gonna make somebody who's attached to the physical world still after they've died. Just because you change a building or something is not gonna make them go away, right? Are ghosts recordings of traumatic events that somehow got embedded on the reality of a place, right? Like Gettysburg or something. In that situation, you can make an argument that maybe it would get rid of the ghost, because if it's somehow the vibrations or something of the event are getting implanted into the structure, if you take the structure away and you put new structure in, you would think that would break that up, There's another theory that says that, ghosts are part of like other dimensions, or like the holographic reality theory and things like that. Like they're part of something that we're seeing that we don't understand, because we can only see so many dimensions, and etc. And in that situation, you would say that if you rebuild the structure, probably wouldn't affect that either, because it's something that's outside of the realm of what we can change. So like.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Gettysburg. I understand there are tons of stories about that place because of that energy. But it was the one I read that stuck in my mind was a group of foreign dignitaries were visiting, and they wanted to see this place. And they were, looking out over which one of the battlefields. And later on, they came over to the guide and says, thank you so much for putting on that reenactment for me. And he says, what reenactment? And he said, well, we just saw this whole platoon of guys in blue marching by, with guns and bayonets and the whole routine. And then, they did a column right or whatever else. And he says, And the guy said, well, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
We don't have anyone here to
Yeah.
do that.
Gettysburg kind of too what addresses what Darren was talking about. That's kind of like why I mentioned it, is because there's been sightings at Gettysburg where you had the structures of the hotel or whatever where the person saw the ghost had been totally rebuilt, so the floor was in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
So the person saw the ghost and they saw a soldier walking through the air, right? And then later they did research on it and they found that, well, the reason the ghost was walking through the air is because the floor used to be up higher and he was walking through there. So you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So one thing I was wanting to bring up is not really a story. It's more of a custom that I have heard. There was and I'm, like I said, not confirmed. I think it's one of the tribes around the Shawnee and McLeod. I think it's Kickapoo. But during the, say if a person passes away, for whatever reason, when they're preparing the funeral, preparing to get ready, men do their thing, women do their things. One of the rules was, whenever I was told, was they were not allowed to cry. Nobody can show emotion of like sadness or anything. Reason being is because of that spirit. If that spirit sees that person crying or showing that they're going to think that they need to stay. That spirit needs to stay here with the people, who they were close to, who the family members were. So, in order for them to go to, pass on, cross over, as everybody likes to say, the tribe, I guess, whenever they're preparing, getting ready to go, even till after the funeral, they're not allowed to show emotion, show tears or anything, show any kind of sadness whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that, and I'm not sure if I think that is the Kickapoo tribe. But if have y'all heard any other customs maybe similar to that, or anything that's dealing with spirits?
No, I've been away from the culture probably too long, but.
Well, they have the tradition of the grave houses and things, and then there's also some stuff surrounding that about, you put out an offering of food that is for the deceased person, and you shouldn't eat any of that food, because if you eat some of that food, you could get sick, and then you'll have to have a ceremony put on you in order to remove that sickness and stuff like that. So, but it's interesting because what you were saying, Darren, is kind of like meshes with that, because both of those traditions have a belief that the person who died is still there, and they're moving through, or like they're in the area with the people when they're in mourning and all of that stuff, and during the funeral and everything. So it's like you have to conduct yourself in certain ways so that you don't upset the person's transition over to where their other side of the afterlife is. So
the only things that come back to me were that you needed to get the remains in the ground within, was it 4 days?
3 to 4, 3 or 4 days, yeah.
And then one of my cousins told me, after my father passed away, that we were, looking at getting rid of his, his belongings there and sharing them. And she said, "Yeah, one of the things you have to do is get the bed out." And we did, and I think we put it in a yard sale or something. It was gone and nothing flat, but those are the ones I remember. Now, do you think some people are more sensitive to these kinds of things than others? Because I always felt like I was just kind of a down-to-earth, feet on the ground type that wasn't particularly sensitive, although I've seen, things I couldn't explain, but other folks are highly sensitive. I think my wife is like that.
I think passed through, generation to generation. I think some of it has like a lessened their beliefs. Yeah. But then again, like you said, like for instance, your wife and a lot of my family members, belief is still strong. That belief is still strong. They still, go by, what Jared was talking about with what he was bringing up, and so I think sometimes in some situations if it's not talked about I believe that it's lessened. I mean, they don't understand it, or they're not just grasping it.
Well, there's and you can kind of also attribute it to whether the person is a dogmatic person or not. Like some people just can think outside the box, and they're more open-minded just generally to like things that are going to happen. There's a strange thing that happens to you when you are exposed to something you can't explain, whether it's a light in the sky or it's a door opening and closing or, a weird sound in your house, Most people will automatically try to come up with what happened to try to calm down or however, like rationalize it. Is to say, well, it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this. And then other people will also just take in the event as opposed to try to explain what happens. They're just like trying to see what's going to happen next or what's happening in reality at that time.
Okay, well, hold on to that thought. We're going to take a short break here, and while we think of some more of our stories and things, if you've got a ghost story or something you'd care to share a comment, give us a buzz. 918-756-3646. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hear that? That's the sound of Hope being killed by meth.
Okay,
Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew. We're talking ghost stories here now. We're sharing what we know, talking about some theories regarding these kinds of unexplained phenomena. And we've got a few ideas here, but if you'd like to join our discussion, please do. 918-756-3646. And it looks like we've got somebody who might want to play here, so hang on. Mvskoke Radio. Mvskoke Radio, are you with us? Hello? Well, perhaps
They might have got cold feet.
Cold feet, yeah, got scared off.
Understandable.
They
Yeah.
heard the sirens.
If
Yeah.
you are the caller there, please call back. Just probably me fumbling buttons here.
Yeah, one thing that, and you both brought this up earlier before we went to break, was the houses over the in the graveyards, cemeteries. That's a Mvskoke Creek tradition, and one thing we remember about those houses is after they put the houses there, nothing happens. Oh, let's
try this again. Mvskoke Radio, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, finally.
Yes, we can.
Was that you just a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Okay, well.
that was Gary's fault.
That was my fault for fumbling buttons here. All right, what's your first name? What's your first name? Where are you from?
My name's Selena, and I'm from Mvskoke.
Okay, you got a story or a comment you want to share?
I just was wondering, my son has been having a lot of difficulties with sleep paralysis. And I was just wondering what your take was on it.
Well, sleep paralysis, I got to ask you a number of questions. Are you close to a power line or a power transformer, your house, or particularly your son's bedroom?
Not that I'm really aware of. There might be some electrical lines.
Excuse me. How old is your house that you're in? Is it a older construction house?
Well, he actually just moved about a month ago. He just moved a couple of blocks from me, but
The reason
and he had problems before he moved,
Mhm.
and still they seem to have gotten worse since he's moved. And he has terrifying, like he sees spirits and demons.
There's been some interesting research that's happened in the past 20 years on the scientific front in relation to sleep paralysis and also visions of figures or feeling that you're being watched, etc. That relates to your exposure to electromagnetic fields. So what they've done in the lab is they've put people in these helmets that have like electromagnets in them and stimulated different parts of their head with electromagnetic field, and they've been able to replicate these things. So one of the theories about sleep paralysis is that it can be triggered by, if there's a power line or the power lines inside your house aren't in the proper spots, right? That those electromagnetic fields can influence your sleeping. Now, I also have had sleep paralysis. Like, I have had problems with it for a long time. That's one of the things that got me interested in the paranormal stuff is the same.
I have too.
And part of that is also, there might be a genetic component. They're not for sure on that thing. But one of the things that you can also look into before you go into whether it's spirits or not is, some people have success with sleep paralysis by creating an environment where, or what they know from sleep studies is, when you're transitioning from your awake state into your sleep state, right? That's where something gets messed up there when you experience sleep paralysis. So your mind kind of thinks that you're awake, but your body is actually transitioned into sleep, and so you start to have this feedback loop that happens. So one of the things they found is that you can try to sleep with the TV on, like if you turn the volume down, or you basically want something there that's gonna, when you go into that transition state, you'll know whether you're asleep or awake. Like if you it's hard to explain. So, like if you turn all the lights off and you go to sleep, right? You'll be in the dark and you'll be asleep, but you can think that you're awake because you're in the dark. So the idea is if you leave a light on or you do something exposing to that. Now on the other side, if you're looking at paranormal explanations, right? So there's a lot of them. Are you Native American?
No, just a little. I mean, not much.
Because one of the explanations for sleep paralysis, particularly in the Creek Nation, is that, so that we talk about the folklore of what the Helis High or the medicine man can do, and sometimes they have stories of Helis High that are turned into bad guys, right? And so they can, because supposedly one of the powers they have is like they can shrink, they can go through walls and stuff, and there are a lot of tales of those bad guy Helis Hayas like attacking you and doing things to you, and that's one of the things they supposedly can do is they can give you sleep paralysis. They can turn totally invisible so you can't see them. They're basically like harassing you. And in that situation, you could have another Helis High come in and purify everything and do some rituals for you that will cleanse that. It's basically kind of like an exorcism. So those are some options. People use a lot of, one of the things that's associated with it generically is like smudge sticks and stuff like that. You could try all of those types of remedies out. The first thing I'd check, though, would be, power lines or move or just move in his bed. If he can move his bed to a different place and see if that affects the amount of sleep paralysis he's experiencing.
Okay. Did that help out?
Yes, it did. I had told him maybe he should make a doctor's appointment because he's very confused, and his fiance says, I have to wake him up. He's terrified. And when I wake him up, he's not really grounded yet. And he still thinks, it's like, he says, Mom, it's like somebody is physically, holding me down.
Does he ever have any somnambulism? Does he ever sleepwalk?
No.
A sleep study is something that would help anybody who's having sleep paralysis a lot. And that would be something to look into, sure.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
A lot of options there.
that gives us some stuff to investigate.
Sure.
So
All right. Well,
I,
good.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. Good luck with it.
I appreciate it. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye. There's an interesting call. I hadn't run across sleep deprivation like that.
It's sleep paralysis is basically and you guys might have experienced it and not even known it. It's pretty common now. The numbers are going up for it. That's one of the reasons they postulated the whole thing about the power lines, is because it's something that was reported long ago, not a lot, but there was records of it, and then they think that the numbers have gone up because it's become more prevalent, and they were like, what's changed in society? Well, everybody has electrical power in their house, right? And these EMF fields are everywhere now. Like you're constantly bathed in it. Scientifically and medically, they say it's not dangerous to you, but they're not, like all the research isn't in. It's just like they had the whole thing about the cell phones, right? A while back. It's like cell phones are going to give you a brain tumor, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Well, they don't know for sure.
The word was from our line crew when I work with the electric utility is that no, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're wrong. It's been proven. There are studies that this electromagnetic force is not there and things like that. And as the PIO, I had to say, okay, guys, we say it's not there, even if it might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, I'm Loxian, and it's there.
Loxa. Oh my gosh! Now the story in there was interesting that you mentioned. Sleep with the TV on, and first thing that came to mind was that little girl saying, "They're back."
Yeah. Well, and the for instance, that scene in the film, right? So that scene's actually quasi based on some research. There was a guy, and what he did was they found out, and then this is I don't even know if you could do it anymore because of the way TVs are. But back in the day when you had a CRT TV, the old style tube televisions, you could take a camera and you could hook the camera up to the TV, right? So that the TV was displaying what was on the camera, what the camera saw. And then you point the camera into the TV, right? So it's like a video feedback loop, okay? So what this guy did was, and the reason he did this is he was working off of a kind of a theory because, the guy who invented the radio, like Marconi, originally he was trying to contact the spirits of the dead is what he was trying to do with that. They didn't know what radio waves were and all that. So he set this up and then he recorded it with the old style, I don't think it was Beta, I think it was U-matic because it was in the 70s. But he recorded a tape of that feedback loop, right? And then he went back, and so it created this static. He went back and took that tape and went frame by frame in that tape, and he found pictures of people's faces, right? And then he was able to take those faces and find photographs of people who had died, and he said that's what he was doing, is that there's this kind of generalized idea with ghost and paranormal phenomenon that if you have like a randomized thing, that the spirits can contact you through that. If you watch ghost documentaries and stuff, they'll have what they call a spirit box, which is like a radio that circles through all these radio channels constantly. And they will ask questions of the spirits, and then the radio will randomly say words, and they're saying that, so the idea with that is that the spirits are influencing the random chance of that mechanism to make it say specific words, so that's how they communicate.
Sorry, Jared. To bring that up, especially those TVs back then, that was a lot of, white noise. Was that white noise?
Yeah, the static.
And remember, I think it would be hard to do that, especially with the way TVs are now. Especially there's more channels, a lot of them don't sign off anymore, kind of like what they used to do back when we were kids and before that time.
I've done some experiments with it. The problem you have nowadays is the CRT TVs. They use, now this is technical stuff, it's done not about ghosts, but they use scan lines, so they scan across the electron gun shoots electrons across in a line, and it refreshes really fast. Nowadays, they either use what's called progressive or interlaced scanning. Progressive, and both of those things are like different from how the CRT tubes work. When we crossed over to the digital era, right, everything now is processed through the computer. The image and everything is processed. The old style TVs, right, the reason you could get static on them is because that's all mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no computers involved in any of that process. In fact, you can hook the TV is basically just an old style oscilloscope. You can hook anything up to it. If you take it apart, you can hook anything up to the electron gun. You can use it as an oscilloscope, etc. Nowadays, you can't do that with monitors because the image and everything is broken down in ones and zeros, and then it's put back through. So it's like, even though you could take your camera at home, and you could try this if you're out there, you could take your camera at home and take the HDMI out from it and hook it up to your TV, and you could point it at your TV, and it will start to do a little bit of stuff, but then it'll stop after a while, right? It'll just be like a black screen. You have to mess with it to get it to start doing stuff again. Whereas with the old style CRT stuff, when you took like an old VHS camera or something and you hook the video out from that up to an old style tube TV, the static will start doing really crazy stuff, and you won't even have to mess with it. Like you can make it do like this crazy whirlwind pattern of static by just like angling the camera a little bit, and then you walk away. You know, like it'll keep going forever, like and changing because it feeds off of itself. But you can't get that feedback loop started with modern equipment for some reason. Ooh, maybe it's conspiracy.
Didn't want to mess with that AI.
yeah, the AI is coming to get you.
Okay, now I guess I'm one of those folks who really hasn't had much of this happen, but you know, there have been times, a couple times in our house now that I got from my father, and you know, we had a kitchen light come on all by itself. You know, it's like, my first thought was maybe, you know, it's one of those old pull switches.
Right.
That maybe the chain got caught and then suddenly released and the light came on.
Yeah.
But we never figured that one out, and I just kind of said, okay, Dad, you know, we got the place covered. We're taking care of it.
Yeah. Are you in town here? Is that in town?
Glenpool.
Glenpool. And it's an older house, I'm assuming.
Yeah, built in the 70s. Yeah.
Well,
believe me, I get the bills for the
yeah. That's the thing about Oklahoma is there are some real old constructions here, and you know, like the house that I'm in was built in 1956. You know, and nothing. I did research on it to see if there had ever been anybody die in the house or anything like that, and nothing came up. I wasn't able to find anything like that. So, but it's strange. There are things that happen that it's hard to explain why they happen.
You know, one group of people that I would like to maybe talk to about something such as this would be nurses. Maybe, yeah, nurses' aid. You know, they're the ones that deal with the patients in whether it be nursing homes or hospitals. You know, so, you know, I'm pretty sure they probably see things that, you know, we couldn't see, or you know, they probably have a lot of like stories to tell us.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually true. My brother is a nurse. And he said exactly the same thing, you know, years ago before my mother passed away. He says, you know, when you see this so much, you pick up this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, vibration or whatever else. And he says, and you begin to kind of see stuff that other people don't. You know,
Yeah.
And when she was ready to go, I mean, he knew. He says, okay, well, it's time now.
Yeah.
How do you know? And sure enough, a couple of minutes later, she just passed on and moved on to other.
Yeah, it's kind of that paradigm of the visionary experience, you know, where you get exposed to the supernatural or the religious to a point where your perception starts to get changed, and then it comes into relief when you're with people who haven't had that exposure. You know what I mean? They're like, wow, yes, you're in touch with something.
Well, it happened again when my father passed away. He was in a nursing home over in Bristol. And we'd been, you know, coming over to sit with him for a couple of weeks and at least, and he wasn't responding much to anything, and you could kind of see him wasting away. And one of my thoughts was, well, maybe, I kind of wish that he'd, go ahead and move on and let this poor body rest, and let it go like that. And within the hour, my brother was there, and he kind of looked at me and says, "It's time," and he knew. And we went over there, and I put my hand on my dad's his leg, and you could almost kind of feel a spirit leave. And I thought, my gosh, I kind of hate to have that kind of power where you run into this, but I'm glad he did at the time.
There's another thing. I mean, similar to that. We all seen a person like moments before they pass away. And fortunately for me, it was one of my friend's dad. He, I was there during the last moment. They took him off life support, so it was just before the body, gave up, and But one of the things was whenever the doctor pronounced him dead, it was right before it got really, really cold in that room, in that hospital room. And they kept the heat on for him. But I know they didn't mess with anything in there. I know we were all surrounding him. And when the doctor pronounced him, just right before he did that, it got really cold. To the point to where, I was rubbing my arms, and I wasn't thinking about it, but after I was drove home, I was looking back on it. But a lot of people say that, or I've heard that, they hear that it gets cold when a person, when a spirit's leaving the body, and it's just it's a colder area at that time, and just close to him. Or close to that body.
Did you see an owl?
I didn't. No, I did not. We were in the hospital at that time. But yeah, no owls, nothing like that.
Well, that's one of the common things that they say is when you're traveling to or from the place, you might see an owl flying over the road or something like that, because that's the traditional lore is that the owls take people to the other side. Which actually is kind of interesting, because if you look at cases of alien abduction, so you have people that don't know anything about that tradition, right? The owl thing. But they will report that. So people are familiar with the whole concept of your memory gets erased and all that. The aliens erase your memory, okay? And so the people that have that supposedly happen to them will report seeing owls and stuff. They'll say, I had a nightmare and I woke up and I looked out the window and I saw an owl, right? You've seen in the past 10, 15 years in paranormal phenomena research this theory gaining power in the alien abduction circles, that it's not aliens, this is like a spiritual journey, that these are angels or something, and they're taking people to another dimension or the other side or whatever to teach them stuff, and they come back, because that's one of the things that's a fundamental deal in the abduction experience, is that aliens abduct somebody and they give them some knowledge, and then the people come back and the people try to spread the knowledge, or their life has changed, etc. So it's one of those things where it's the culture that the alien abduction thing comes from isn't a Native American deal, or it's not that's not a Creek thing. But you have owls in both of those things that are serving in a function of a transitional element over into another type of experience, where you have a visionary experience, you come back changed on the other side.
My mom was Cherokee, and she told me a little bit about that kind of thing, about the owl was a messenger of death.
Yeah.
And if you see one outside your house or something like that, that's a sign that someone's going to pass away.
Yeah.
And he says, her family, her cousins and things like that used to go out and try and chase them away.
Yeah.
And say, go away, we don't need you here.
Yeah.
We don't want this to happen, and things like that. So,
it's kind of
I can't even watch an owl on TV anymore.
Yeah, it's, for a lot of traditionalists, that's one of the things, is they're really scared of owls. I know when I was a kid, they had a contest up here for to design a flag or something for the Creek Nation, and they wanted kids to submit stuff. And so I did medicine wheel thing that had white was one of the colors. And I had done this research, and I was like, well, in a Native American tradition and in a lot of traditions, white's associated with death. So, and in each of the colors, I had done a drawing of an animal or something that's kind of associated with that color. So in that color, I put an owl. Like I did a realistic drawing of an owl in that cube of white. So I turned it in, like Dad was talking to me later after it got submitted, and he was like, man, you shouldn't have put that owl on there. I turned your drawing in, and they were like, we can't have this. Get this out of here because it's got an owl on it.
I think there was the same reaction to Hooters. When
he don't even get a participant ribbon. We just don't want that here.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, guys, it's been fun. I'm glad you all came in and shared some thoughts here, but I think we need to share some community announcements here.
Go
we
ahead.
got a few of them that have piled up since then. First one actually is from Able Roofing. Able Roofing and Construction Services, commercial and residential households, and provides services for all types of roofing and repairs. Call 918-759-2240 for more information or a free estimate, and references are available. Able Roofing and Construction are members of the Better Business Bureau and accept all major credit cards. Give Able Roofing and Construction a call, 1-918-759-2240.
I got the Angel Tree Project. That's coming up. It's that time of the year again. Please submit all donations by December 1st to the Mvskoke Creek Nation Children and Family Services Building. And please make checks payable to the Angel Tree Project. If you have any questions about that, any questions at all, please call 918-732-7869.
We also have the Mvskoke Youth Games. They're coming up November 3rd. It's 6th to 8th grade competition and 9th to 12th grade, 12 competitors per team. So let's see here if there's contact information. You can call Mvskoke Nation Youth Services at 918-549-2557. That's 918-549-2557.
The third annual Men's Summit is coming up on November 3rd. Begins at 9 a.m. at the Tribal Complex at the south end of the walking trail here in Okmulgee. Cultural activities, moccasin making language, IDs, drummed music, elders talk, and a sweat lodge. So men and boys are encouraged to attend. Give them a call, 918-630-7558 by October 30th. You got to do it quick.
Nah, that's over with. Yeah, October 30th.
Oh, right.
That was yesterday.
Yeah, come to think of it.
Yeah.
So you're luck. You're got no luck for getting a box lunch.
Dewar Indian Community has their second annual Halloween bash. It is tonight from 6 to 9. Free admission, costume contest, fun, food, and games. They don't give an address on here, so if you're driving through Dewar, it is all the way through the town of Dewar, going east. And it'll be on your right-hand side. It's like the last building in Dewar. So I apologize for no address or for no phone number. But, yes, if you go all the way through Dewar, it'll be on your right-hand side.
We also have the Wetumpka Indian Community Christmas Bazaar. This one's quite a ways out, December 1st, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, contact Wilma at 405-380-2641, or 2640, sorry.
See how easy that is to do. Well, thank you guys for coming in for this interesting kind of off-the-wall discussion, a little bit different from other shows.
Mado, Gary.
We appreciate it, Darren. Jared,
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it.
We'll probably have to get on some other subjects. I was tempted on that UFO thing. That's another show. Well, anyway, this is Gary Fife saying thank you so much, Mado Mabo Hedget Scott. All right, let's get out of here. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.